Hello, my name is Cameron Barlow, and today I'm going to be giving a presentation on an ethical theory called the rights approach and how I use this approach in my life.
The rights approach. Well, before we even get into the rights approach, let's talk about the building blocks to ethics. First, we'll start off with principles, guideposts for channeling moral thought, and this is also known as the brain or the thought-oriented section of ethics. Second is values, morals generated from influences in one's life, and this is thought of as the heart or the feeling-oriented section of ethics, and ethics itself. The conversion of principles and values into actions, and this is thought of as the hands or feet of ethics, the action-oriented section. So I got a question for you. What good is a basketball if you never take the shot? And what good are a set of golf clubs if you never make it to the green? And what good is a piano if you never play it? Well, ethics is the same way. You can have your values, which you feel in your heart. You can have your principles, which you think in your mind, and your guideposts for that, but you never put them into action. But if you do that, putting those two to action, that'll be ethics. So what we have to do in our lives is use our values and our principles and treat them like the proverbial car, and we've got to drive it. Now, moving on to the rights approach, defining it first as treating one within the justification of their entitlement. Now, the best example I've got is the Miranda rights, something we're all familiar with, hopefully indirectly, but it states, "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Do you understand the rights I have just read to you? With these rights in mind, do you wish to speak to me?" Now, how these apply to rights approach is the justifiable entitlement. You have the justifiable entitlement to remain silent at this moment. If you go beyond your justifiable entitlement of remaining silent, what you say will be used against you in a court of law. Also, it says you have the justifiable entitlement to an attorney. And if you cannot afford an attorney, it is your justifiable entitlement that we provide one for you. So I use that along with the golden rule principle in my life, and that is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So what we have here is we have a principle, we have an ethical approach, but no values. Well, honestly, if I was to explain to you all the different values I have in my life, it would take quite a bit of time. So we'll focus on truth. Now, an example I've got for this. At a college I used to go to, there was a book I needed from a professor. I was doing a design project and he lent it to me. Well, inside this book was there was $500 in this book. So at that moment, my values kicked in. Truth. I tell the truth. Next, my principle kicked in. What would I want somebody to do for me if they found my book, even though I never opened it up? I'd want them to give me the money. And the next, I put those values and principles into action, and I gave it to my professor. So my spoiled but unjustifiably sound professor was increased by $500 that day due to how I used the rights approach. So how I'd like you to take away from this is your principles. You can have them, but you must use them. Your values, you can have them, but you also must use them in order to have ethics. And in my life, I use the rights approach. Thank you for your time.